Hey Songwriters, welcome back to another edition of At Home Songwriting. I'm Chad Shank and I'm so happy that you joined me today. One of the questions that I get asked all the time is how do I get my music out there? How do I release my own music? How do I self-publish? These are all questions that I get asked a lot. So what I wanted to do was have a roundtable discussion with some artists and songwriters that are actually doing that, getting their music out there and working day jobs, which is huge because so many of us are working day jobs and trying to get music out there and trying to do the right thing. And there's a lot of advice out there. And I thought you could learn from some people that are actually doing it. So today, my guests are Matthew French, Ted Heinashevitz, and Doyle Turner. If those names sound familiar, I've interviewed all of them separately on past videos here on the channel. So definitely look for those videos and enjoy their individual conversations. But today we're going to welcome them all to this show and this channel to talk about releasing your own music. So let's go. All right. Hey guys, welcome to At Home Songwriting. We have Ted, Matt, and Doyle. What's going on?
Hey, good to see you, Chad.
Living the dream.
Yeah, I know I've talked to you guys all individually on past videos, Doyle, the most recent, and then I talked to Matt and Ted a little while ago. So welcome back to the channel. And, I wanted to really talk about something that I get asked about a lot, and that's releasing music on our own and kind of what do we do once we have these songs and how do we release our own songs and do that? And I know that all of you have been working on that a lot recently. So, just kind of wanted to talk about it. So maybe let's start off with Doyle. I know, Doyle, you just had some projects come out, and how long have you been releasing music?
Probably since early 2020 was my first one that I put out. Until the Good Comes Back Around was my first. So
Did you put it out before COVID, or was it in the midst of COVID, or what did that look like?
it was in the midst of COVID, and I had done some recording, and we've got albums that were more family projects from the 2000s. But in terms of solo stuff, it's been just the past 4 years or so.
Awesome. And Matthew, how about you? When did you start putting out music?
I think the first release that I did was back in 2015, and that one was, just kind of, I had no idea what I was doing, and I still kind of feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. But I feel like you learn something every time, and, there's always something that's, oh, I should have done that last time, and then you do it the next time. And then there's still another element that you want to add in there for the next time. So
Awesome. And Ted, how about you? When did you start putting things out?
I don't want to date myself, but the first thing I put out was we rented a 4-track from I think it was Viking Music in New Hope, not far from where you are, Chad. And
Yeah.
we recorded a really bad demo, and we put out a cassette album, called it an album, was it? And we made our own little duplicates because I had the double tape deck thing. And this is where I'm dating myself. Most people might not know what this is, but Tidal Wave was a record store, and I would drop my little cassettes off in the bin where they put a city pages and all that.
Yeah.
They just grabbed them and threw them away. But I was like, maybe somebody will get it and I'll get big. So I'd have been 16 when that happened, and I'm not 16 anymore.
Yeah, me neither. But what's funny, Ted, is that's how I got started as well, was when I was in high school. I made my own cassettes. I actually made carbon copy covers. I made one cover, and then I just carbon copied it, or copying machine, and I'd cut them out with scissors to put them
all
in
jagged, right?
Yes. Yep. Yep. And then when there were colored, when you could print in color, that was wow, that's next level right there. But yeah, I had a music store in Mitchell, South Dakota that used to sell my cassettes, my tapes. And then I actually convinced a grocery store to sell them at their customer service counter. And I actually moved quite a few there.
Cool. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. So maybe Ted and I have been releasing music for a long time, but so when you guys think about releasing music, and I know that all of you have projects that have come out recently, but When do you start thinking about what you're going to put out? Like, are you writing songs for specific release, or what does that look like? And I'll just kind of throw it out there for you guys.
For me, I've been writing so much that I start to get a pile of songs that I really, really like, and I know that they're going to be something I want to keep and maybe mold into something that's a little bit more refined. And so once the pile gets to a certain height, then I tear into it.
See what fits.
How big is that pile? Do you have any idea of like how many songs that is at that point?
Usually it's probably picking from somewhere around 30
Awesome.
of the ones that are kind of staying in the back of my mind. Yeah. And I know I've heard Matt talk about he's got a list going now for his next album even.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
really, when you said that, Doyle, I was like, that's very similar to my process. Um, I don't know that I've ever written for a specific album. I've written songs and then said, "Hey, I've got this group of songs feels like it tells a story. Let's put that out together." Um, and I like Doyle, am sitting on, maybe 25 songs right now that are things that I've sort of earmarked as potentially recordable. When the inspiration will hit me to put those together as a story, I don't know, but they're there, and I will continue to add on to that, hopefully.
So I know, Doyle, you had said this, and now Matt, you're saying this too. So you're writing songs and you're getting this collection of them. How are you capturing them? Are you doing like rough recordings, or are you just writing them down, or what does that process look like?
Well, for me, we're all part of the same writing group, all four of us, and so we're doing that recording on a phone. And so I've got those, and then I always have a paper copy or an electronic copy of a lead sheet. And so I'm always making sure that my dates are on whatever I've got that's a lead sheet, so I can go back and look for the video, because a lot of times I don't remember how to play it.
Yeah.
I
Is
I
that
like
similar for you, Matt?
Yeah, my process for keeping track of things has I think improved over time. And I was just talking to another songwriting friend about this yesterday. I write all of my songs into the Notes app on my phone.
Hmm.
And you can actually insert the voice recording. So if you do a voice recording on your phone, you can insert that into the note. Um, but what has really helped me over the last maybe year or so is posting all of the new songs that I've written to YouTube as just, kind of like this sort of first draft video, and that has kind of become my archive and helped me, not need to scroll back through notes or find a way to find it on my phone. It's all there electronically, and for the government to monitor all of my everything.
There you go. I was gonna say, can we access these new songs before they're ready, or
Yes, they are. I post them as public on my YouTube channel. So
okay?
they're kind of out there, and hopefully will be fun someday to hear what they sound like as the finished recorded product versus what they were like when I first started out.
Cool. So Ted, how about you? How does it start for you?
How does it start?
Yeah,
So,
like
right,
with
right.
like when you're writing songs, are you collecting them over time, or are you writing for a project?
I've done both. Early on, I would do it. I would like come up with like I might have a couple songs, and I'd have a concept of whatever an album might be, and then I would start to intentionally try to write for that. I never really. Some people do that really well. I don't, and so I made really bad albums, but I had cool titles, things like that. Lately, because of the songwriter group, it's really the same thing like what Doyle and Meredith, where I have a pile of songs. In fact, I have so many that you don't even remember what you have. And so I keep a spreadsheet of songs, like so I can go, okay, and then I can try to keep a mental note of this might seem like they match. And I do come up with like album themes or titles, if you will. And then is this going to work? And I'm always moving things in and out like a puzzle.
Yeah.
And that's my brain's always like thinking, Doyle and I are working on a record. We've got the concept, we're working on it. I've got Hebba Jebba, and I've got things for my thing that I'm always jockeying things around, but it's not so much writing to it as seeing what fits and what doesn't. Um, Writing a lot more makes it easier to um, be able to do that freely instead of feeling like, oh, I have to use this song. I don't really like it, but
Mhm.
I don't even, you know. So,
Well, I know some people watching when they hear you guys say I have 25 songs, I have 30 songs, for some people watching that might be more than they've ever written in their whole lifetime. Like Ted, how long does it take you to write a song or, are you writing all the time or what does that look like for you?
I'm a very fast writer, and so how long does it take to write a good song? I don't know. Honestly, it's just like you stumble upon it if you do enough of them. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
So I just write. And we're doing one every 2 weeks, and I'm usually writing something in between those.
cool.
But I'm not an everyday writer. I would love to be. I just don't, I can only do so many things. So for me, it's not a song a day. That would be awesome. Love to do that.
How about you, Matt?
I'm we are writing every 2 weeks right now, but I I like to have different methods of songwriting, so I don't want to just only be able to write because I have a prompt. Try to work on other ideas that I have, that just sort of pop into my head or when I'm sitting down playing my instrument. I think that's a big piece of writing for me comes when I'm just kind of like fiddling around on my guitar. Um,
Cool.
when you talk about folks that may not have tons of songs that they've written, I remember being terrified when someone asked me to play a gig for 45 minutes because I didn't have 45 minutes of songs that I had written. And it's kind of but the more that you find joy in it, the more that you continue to do it. So if you don't have them right now, um, just keep at it, because I think the Ted in particular is one of the most prolific writers that I
Mhm.
know. Find some folks that inspire you. Find a book or a group or something that inspires you, because you can get there for sure.
Cool. And Doyle, how about you?
I it just depends. Sometimes I've slaved away for a long time on a song, and then Ted and I had the opportunity to write yesterday. Happened to be in close proximity, and I just have to say Ted is an amazement. Within a couple of hours, Ted had something knocked together, and I helped a little bit. But it was amazing to watch, and I think Ted's right. I try not to polish and polish and polish and polish. I try to get something done. Neil Gaiman mentioned that. He's a writer, and he said you have to finish things.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
that's what really spurred me is that I need to get it done. I don't have as many half songs laying around, even if they're not my best effort. They don't turn out as well as they originally were in my mind. I've still got them finished, and I put them in a little 3-ring binder, and then on to the next one. And then with enough progress and forward motion, then I find the ones that float up and to the surface and stick with me. And um, I, I was playing over the weekend, and I realized that most of what I'm playing is brand new stuff because that's the stuff that's most exciting.
Cool.
And that's kind of cool too, because as you play it, you get to know if it really connects or not.
Awesome. Um, so once you guys then have these songs and you say like, okay, I'm ready to turn this pile into, hopefully it's not a pile of crap, but turn the pile into an album. How are you then recording your songs? I think that's a question that a lot of songwriters have too. And Ted, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, I have a few methods. A lot of what I do if I'm doing my own stuff is done right here in this room, or I farm out parts like people from various parts of Minnesota or the country, or even like I have a guy in England who does cool pedal steel stuff, and
Cool.
so I will do a lot of like my stuff that way, just because I'm doing so much, I can't afford to go in the studio. My band, my drummer he's just got it. He's just really good at it. He's got all amazing equipment, great sounding rooms. So we do it there. Doyle and I are we're recording in a Quonset hut. So I just said wherever you get the opportunity to do it, but you can do it at home. So if you're just starting out, I would recommend doing that if it doesn't, what's the word? If it doesn't terrify you or suck the energy out of writing, I would recommend doing that because it's fun. Now, if it's not fun for you, then move on and just use your phone. That's okay. But I enjoy it. It's a kick.
What are you recording on?
I use Presonus. What is Studio One?
Studio
Yeah.
One. Cool.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Awesome.
used to use Cakewalk forever, and then I think it's around still, but I heard it was going under, so I started shopping around for something easy. It's easy. I can figure it out.
Yeah. I used Cakewalk for years, like years and years, and then I switched over to Logic. I think and that was a big evolution for me. So going from PC to Mac was a huge
Sure.
it was a big thing. But now I think Cakewalk is available for free online. I think it's like a kind of like a shareware type thing,
Yep.
which is kind of interesting.
Logic is cool though. I like Logic.
Yeah, I mean, Logic can do more than I do with it, and I do a lot with it. So it kind of meets you wherever you're at. It's kind of like a GarageBand on steroids kind of a thing.
Right.
So Matt, I know that you recently you've been recording in a studio. Did you start doing your stuff in studios, or what was your recording process?
Yeah, I've been lucky to have friends that sort of do the studio thing for a living, and so, was able to like have the joy of going to a studio of a really great friend, comfortable space, and I did the last album with one of my best friends. But I've done other stuff like Ted, where I recorded, my guitar and vocal in my bedroom, and someone else recorded their vocal at their house, and then I sent something out to a guy in Germany to play pedal steel on, and sent it to a pro to sort of put it all together. So you don't, I mean, these days I use Logic at home. Equipment isn't, you can get good stuff for a fairly low price these days, something that you can make at home. Of course, it's cool to be in a studio, but you don't need to necessarily.
How about you, Doyle?
I'm using Persona Studio One, and the first time I did an album, I did it all completely in a studio. And I want to echo what Matt says. Every time you do something alongside somebody else, it's like, for me, it's like a graduate study. Right, I'm getting more and more information on how to do it, and I learn from everybody that I'm working with. But during the pandemic, of course, we couldn't go into the studio, so I got a DAW, a Presonus, and learned it and recorded everything for that second album right from here, vocals and guitar and that sort of thing, and then sent it in remotely to a fellow in town, Troy Foss, who put it and mixed it, and then we sent it out to have it mastered. So I've done it both ways. It's funny because I heard a podcast with John Oates from Hall & Oates, and he was saying that he does all of his demo work in GarageBand. And he says people laugh at him because it's just a simple but very powerful tool. And he says I know it well enough that I can communicate my ideas to the musicians so much more eloquently than through words. I bring in and say, this is what I'm hearing for this, and then they do it. And so I don't think it matters exactly how, as long as you find a way to get your ideas down. And then don't be afraid if your ideas stink, because Ted produced my last album, Sweet Difficult Sounds, and I sent him some stuff that I wouldn't share with anybody else in the world. That was just horrible, but those ideas evolved and became something that were real signature pieces of those songs. But it comes from a rough idea.
Yeah. So those of you who are, and I think Ted, you hit on this, and this is kind of for me too. Like, I'm writing so many songs that I would lose all my money if I was constantly going to a studio and recording. And the way that I work is I'm actually producing as I'm writing. So so it's like I'm doing everything all in real time. So I don't have a lot of rough recordings. Mine are kind of like always finished, which is a different way of doing it than what you guys are doing, but I think it's a valid way too. But from a cost perspective, and I don't want to get too personal here, but like for someone who's looking to put out like an EP or something, like what sort of cost are people looking at these days?
I think it really matters, and I'm probably the one with the least amount of experience on the panel, but it matters to how much you want to do yourself.
Mm,
Because Chad, you put on an amazing amount of music and albums, multiple albums a year, and I think your bottom line is probably a little bit lower than mine, where I hire out and farm out certain aspects of it.
yeah.
Um,
So my expense is really just to upload it to I use like, and DistroKid is super
Sure.
cheap, so I use DistroKid. I've used CD Baby in the past as well. I have had some projects that I've hired people to master it, which mastering like an album cost me like $600 or something like that. So it was like $60 a song or something. Um, I've thought about hiring people to mix, but that gets expensive too. And
mhm.
the thing about me is I'm putting out music online, but I'm not marketing it, right? So I'm just it's going up there as like Matt, what you said, it's almost like it's like that's my legacy that I'm leaving. It's more of like that's my time capsule for myself. It's not that I'm actually promoting it. So I have like 5 Spotify listeners.
Right. Right. And you could even, if one wanted to, you could put it on Bandcamp and it costs you nothing. So then if you
Sure.
wanted to, it'd be the cost of whatever the little audio interface in your DAW and put it on Bandcamp and Bob's your uncle, right? It really
Yeah.
depends on what you want to do with it. I think maybe you just want to share with family, and that's perfectly fine too. But if it's something you're interested in, the sky's the limit. You can go anywhere from virtually nothing to, well, it could be thousands of dollars. So what do you want to do with it? And I think you hit the nail on the head, Chad, with like you're not marketing it. And so if you're not marketing it, why would you spend so much money to get it mixed and mastered? You could learn those. You have learned those skills, right?
Yeah.
You can learn those things and get a good sound too. Um, I don't know. I think those are things to just kind of consider. Um, what do you want to
Yeah.
put on?
And that's the thing too, I think for people who are watching this that are brand new to all of this, like don't like remortgage or refinance your house for your first album because you're gonna be disappointed. Um, go the cheapest route possible and make sure that I think the thing is the music has to be the best part of it because
Mhm.
if you have a bad song, and you spend a whole bunch of money to record it in a really expensive studio, you're going to have a nice clean recording of a bad song. Like
Mhm.
it's not the production that makes the song. So, um Matt, what's been your experience? Like did you start kind of less expensive and move up, or I know you said you're working with friends a lot too, so maybe you're just buying them beer and,
Yeah,
pizza
so
and stuff.
working with friends, I've been able to make it, more feasible financially, just based on the friend rate. My last album, I actually, before we started recording, I said, "Oh, I've got this guitar that you like. How about I give you this guitar?" And so we said guitar for album kind of thing.
Would you like to barter?
Yes.
I'll
So
give you
you
a cow
can
for my album.
you can totally do those kind of things. I want to make sure that we like. I was thinking when I first released my EP that I put out in 2015, I didn't know anything about signing up for a performing rights organization or like a distributor. So we should make sure that we get into that for anybody that wants to get their music,
Yeah.
out on the Spotify's and Apple Musics.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question then. So once you have it recorded, you have to determine what's the medium that it's going to reach people, right? So, back in the day, when Ted and I were dubbing our cassettes, that was one of the only ways, CDs, you couldn't even burn them back then. So, um, but now it's like you have a lot of options. So do you guys do multiple formats? Like, what does that look like? I know, Matt, I purchased your vinyl, so I know that you've got CDs and vinyl and also the streaming as well.
Yeah, I think, for me, this is the first time that I've done vinyl. And there's again, a relative cost that goes into that. I just did 100 vinyl to, to make it a little more cost effective for myself. And so 10 years from now, I don't have 25 boxes of vinyl sitting around somewhere. But I think, it's it's easy from a logistical standpoint to get it on Spotify and Apple Music and those things these days. I thought that I didn't realize how that worked, and there are places out there that you can sign up for and pay a nominal fee that will get your music there, which is really cool.
Yeah.
There are free ones too that you can get it out. Like I use DistroKid as well, and you pay for that like $20 a year or something.
20. Yeah. I think I pay 35 a year because I wanted to be able to have a second artist account in case I
Sure.
create an alter ego.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, but there are some, and I don't recall what they are. I wish I did, where they will distribute your stuff. I don't know how that works, but there are. And then Bandcamp again is free, and you can sell your stuff or give it away there if you want to.
Yeah.
But then you get, they take a percentage of that, but you're not paying them every year to put it out there. So there are ways to get it on YouTube. You can, there's so many ways to get it out there. I'm an album person, so I love the whole concept of the album, like what Matt said, telling a story through this arc of songs, and I think that is exciting to me. And I that's for me. I'm a big nerd with that stuff. So.
Cool. Doyle, what mediums have you released?
I've tried everything except for the vinyl, and the streaming stuff is we could do a whole show just on whether that's what you want to do or not, because you're really putting it out there, and it's not something that you really ever make money on unless you're having millions of spins. But you're almost like you're not relevant unless you do have it available for anyone anytime in terms of a way to build any kind of a listenership. But I've always done physical copies of an album and then done digital copies of my singles that I've done. I spoke to a fellow who is a Nashville writer and hosts songwriter rounds at the Bluebird, and he said that he will never ever put out an album that doesn't have a physical component. He says because that's a physical representation of your work, which I love that idea. I just for singles I won't put out a physical copy of it. I just or I'll use that single as a way to be a tease or a way to keep forefront in people's minds, and then add it to an album. That's the single that I'm going to put out at the end of February. That's going to be something that will eventually appear on an album.
So that's the thing. I mean, back in the day, everybody would either make cassettes, was the first thing where you'd have cassettes, made. But then it got to be where CDs were the thing, right? And everybody was selling CDs, and you could make $15, $20 a pop on a CD.
Mm-hmm.
And like everybody was making money that way. And now with streaming, Doyle, you said it, that you make basically nothing. I mean, what is it, like a half of a cent or something, like, or even less? You can have like 10,000 streams and make like a nickel type of a thing. So you can buy coffee with your royalties there. But so that's the next question. I mean, Matt, you said, you're signing up for like performing rights organizations and things like that. So, for people watching that maybe aren't familiar with the PROs or the performing rights organizations, the big ones are ASCAP and BMI. I think there's like CSAC, and then there's like, isn't there a SOCAN, which is in Canada? And basically they collect royalties for when your songs are used in public performance. So if it's performed by another artist at a venue that happens to be the, an ASCAP or BMI venue, or if it's on a radio station that's in a survey, or if it's on TV and it's in a survey, then they collect those royalties for you, and then you get paid out on a quarterly basis. That's about 3 years late. I've had some songs that were used in TV shows, and I still get BMI royalties from it, but it's always like 3 quarters behind. And the TV shows that my music were in are like in Belgium and Brazil and like all these places now. So I still get, these international royalties, which is kind of cool. So Matt, what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, I didn't know what a performing rights organization was when I started. I used ASCAP. It's a way to, I know that Ted and I've if I have a song with Ted, and you can, essentially split the percentage that you might earn if that song, is in a television show or it's used somewhere. Um, but it's a place to register your works, your songs that you've written. Um, and and I, as a performer, I get lazy about this, but you can actually, if I perform, I go out and do a show this weekend, I can go onto the ASCAP website and say, I played Matthew French's songs, these 10 songs, and I actually can get a royalty from that.
More
So
than the
anybody has
streams.
that opportunity. Yes.
Yeah, it is more than streams. Yeah.
For sure. And you can go back 6 months, I think, right, Matt? Like, so
Yeah.
if you're like you mentioned lazy, because I'm the king of lazy. If you can go back and just like, I played, and just note when you are, you can you're collecting royalties for performing your own songs. You may have gotten paid for the gig. I hope you got paid something, but you're also getting paid after the fact. That's
But you also get paid, they track YouTube plays. So not only do you get like a YouTube royalty, but you get performing rights money from YouTube streams as well, which is cool.
I will say this for, I don't have a large following on the streaming services. I don't have a mass following on YouTube, so I don't make money off of this thing. But you want to have all these things set up, because you never know when somebody from Belgium is gonna come calling for a song, or when a friend is gonna record a song that you guys wrote together, and you want to have all of your kind of back end things in place for when you do decide to release music.
Yeah. Yeah. Ted, are you registered with the PROs as well?
Yeah, I'm registered with ASCAP as well.
Cool. Doyle?
Yep, with BMI. Yep.
I'm BMI too.
Hey,
And
there we go.
The reason I signed up for BMI is because that's where Janet Jackson is signed up. So that's where I wanted to do it. So
Yeah.
Very good reason.
yeah.
She's pretty successful. Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah, just a little bit. So Matt hit on it, like streaming, and all of us, obviously we're not, and even the big artists will say that they're not making a lot of money off of streaming unless they are ultimately like huge artists and they're getting millions upon millions of streams. So obviously, Matt, you said you don't have a big following online. And do you guys then, is your sort of economics of releasing your music, is it more towards the live performing and selling physical product at this point? Or once your album is done, like how do you sort of recoup some of those expenses?
Well, I'll start off with this one because I think it's a balancing act, and you have to know who your active audience is, right? I always print some CDs because I know I've got a middle to older crowd. Though I did play a gig one time with Ted, and there was an 80-year-old woman who wanted to buy a copy of my album, but she didn't have a CD player because her new car had no CD player.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting deal. People want something physical when they enjoy a show, and so to have that is important. But it's also kind of like, well, how many do you print? Because I'm playing X amount of shows, and some of those shows are more well attended than others. It's a real for me. I'm still figuring that out. I don't have that figured out.
Cool. Matt, how about you?
I think I've gotten better at the financial piece of it over time, not over investing in buying thousands of CDs, kind of thing, small runs. And it's also really a lot of releasing music for me has become about expectations versus reality. When I first started releasing music, I thought, oh, if I can write some good songs, they'll get played on the radio, and like I'll be very popular. And I didn't know that if I thought I would make a living from it, but for me personally, I have a corporate job that I do during the day, and music in that can support my financial well-being in my life. And so I have a little more room to just be passionate about music. And even within that, being passionate about music, I want to try to be financially responsible with the investments that I make.
Right.
Other than the insane amount of guitars that I buy.
But
You
that's,
always
I
have a
mean,
way to buy studio time.
but that's understand. Yeah, you're like, that's your trading cards, it sounds like. Ted, how about you?
You know, I do, you know, I'm the worst at selling things. I would arm wrestle you and make you take it. And my wife gets so mad at me. So I had shirts and all kinds of working on merch things, and I just don't do that anymore because I don't sell it. I have CDs because it's a nice business card too, especially with a name like mine that is so easy to spell. It's nice to be able to put something in your hands so you can go, oh my gosh, and then maybe find my website from it at least, you know.
Yeah.
So CDs are nice for that, but I don't sell a ton, so I don't press a ton if I'm doing it. Um, where I spend money is usually because I can't play things I want. I want a really good B3 or I want this. And so I farm that out, and that's where it costs money. So I gig and get paid to do that to then pay for that part. And usually I'm coming at the end of the year, I'm always pretty close. I think I spend more than I make.
Yep.
But I still spend less than somebody who golfs or fishes or hunts. So
There you go. Or drinks a lot.
yeah.
So, but that's, I think Matt, you hit on something that I think people have misconceptions about how the music business works too. Like, it takes a lot more than just a really good song to even end up on the radio, or like, I think I saw a stat that it's like 1.5 to $2 million to break a song nationally. Like, to get a song like nationally broken, it takes like $1 to $2 million. So you can't feel bad that you don't have very many followers because you're not investing like these companies do. You know, they're pumping money upon money, and you know, that's what it takes really to get it really out there. But it sounds like all of us do this because we love it, right? Like, you guys, you're trying to recoup some of the expenses, but it sounds like everybody's investing in it. Ted's giving away stuff, you know, because it's fun, right? Like, you have something that's, I think that part of what we're put here to do is just create, you know, and just being creative and putting things out in itself is rewarding. So you guys are, you know, you're making physical product, you're putting out streaming, you guys are doing gigs. So let's talk about gigging. You know, we're talking a lot about recording, but getting out and just performing is a way to release your music as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Ted, you said that you know, make more money probably gigging than anything else, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, and it probably will slow down a little this year, only because I'm doing less of the 3 hour play in the corner type of thing. But
Sure.
we do okay at other shows, you know. When you play an hour, if you do per hour type of thing, and I don't have to haul my own PA, and it works out really well. The gigging part for me, really the biggest reward is two big rewards for me. You get to create and you get to connect, right? We got to create something, which I think every human being is creative, has some way of being creative, whether they tap into it or not. Everybody has some creative thing that they're just wired to do. And then we get to connect. And so the gigging part is, we just did that this weekend. It was like, oh my gosh, if I could do this every day, I would do it all day, every day. You know, it was so great, you know. That is the reward for me for gigging. I would pay to, I'm joking, I'm not going to do that. I would pay to play to be able to have that experience, you know. It's like going to Valley Fair, but you got paid to do it, you know.
So any bookers watching this, Ted's just kidding.
Right. I'm 100% kidding, and I'm not advocating for that either, but it is fun.
You don't want to advocate the play for exposure thing.
No.
Matt, do you enjoy the performing as well?
I do. I love it. I mean, I think that's, you know, I love the writing, the process there. I like the studio stuff. It's cool, but it's a lot of work for sure. But the gigging and actually getting to see someone connect with a song, that's priceless. You know, to tell by looking at someone that they're really connecting with with the song that you wrote is probably the coolest feeling in the world on this music thing for me. I do, you know, I think I've gotten, and I've played all kinds of shows over the years. You know, I've played in people's living rooms. I opened for a drag show once. I played the block parties, all kinds of things. And you just get to connect with all kinds of different people. And maybe you are playing at a bar in the corner, and somebody like you got to give them a special night. They have something memorable out of that. And so even the ones that aren't the most glamorous, Ted and I played in an apple orchard last summer, and
Cool.
we were just like, the hot dog stand is right over there, and we're, singing 25 feet away from that. And, people were just enjoying themselves on a beautiful summer day. So getting to be a part of that, and then getting to do that with people like Doyle and Ted and other friends that, we gig with, it takes it to another level of special.
I was talking to another friend the other day, and we were talking about how people think that like there's like two types of musician. They're like not famous and famous. Do you know what I mean? Like there's people who are like just doing it as a complete hobby, and then there's people that are like superstars, right? But they forget that there's this entire spectrum of people that are like having the best time around playing in an apple orchard. Do you know what I mean? And like how many people can say that they've done that, or opening for a drag show? Like that's awesome.
I
You
love
know,
it.
like,
Sure.
and think of all the people that you meet.
Well, I'd like to point out that the four of us here are only connected because we chose to step out and write and create. And from that, we got to know one another.
Yeah.
So I'd like to echo what both Ted and Matt and what you have said too, Chad, about connection. One of the coolest things over the past 3 or 4 months is Ted and I perform a song that Matt wrote. And we asked him if we'd be able to perform it. And so there have been 2 different times where we've been performing this song while Matt's there, and everybody in the venue is singing along with the chorus that he wrote, the refrain. And I get to look out and watch Matt as something that he's created is connecting with a whole room full of people. And that's magic, right? That's magic. The
Yeah.
fact that you and that I know Ted is because of a song and because we chose to create. And the fact that, we all know one another is because of that. And the other part of it is there's a portion, I believe, like you mentioned, Chad, that there's a part of us that's meant to create. Jeff Tweedy says that if you're involved in creation, the more you're involved in creation, the less you're involved in destruction. And so it feeds a certain part of us, right? Performing out I've done it. I've been playing, since I was very young, and then I would perform out on occasion, and I've done some fairly large venues, and it's always been uncomfortable for me. And so I see it as a way of, because for me, the writing is the thing. That's the whole thing about it is the writing for me. But I see that performing as a way of growing and learning. And that's a part of me that needs to be fed too. I mean, we're meant to grow and learn. And so when I stand on a stage with Ted Heineshevitz, I watch what he's doing and I learn from that, right? I learn about being generous as an artist. Artists are generous, they give. And so you give, and sometimes people don't receive. And then you walk out and give again. I watched Matthew French in my garage singing like a house concert, and watch him how he's able to so unassumingly grab an audience, and pretty soon we're all along for the ride, listening to every syllable. And I think how does he do that, right? And so it's a lot about growth for me.
So Matt, Doyle said that they sing your song and people are singing it. What is that experience like for you when you're sitting there?
I think hearing Doyle describe it, I teared up a little bit over here. I'm glad the lighting is dark in my place right now, because you won't be able to tell it. But we were the other night when they sang it, we were in a hole in the wall bar, the coolest place in Minneapolis, Dusty's Bar, and people are the entire crowd is singing a chorus that says leave a little love where you go.
Wow.
And it's what a magical thing. If I think people want that right now. There's a hunger for that kind of a message, and whether it's a bar or a big venue or whatever, people are kind of hungry for that kind of thing. And to see these guys do their thing. I love, that's what I love about artists is, we're having this conversation now and we're all just, regular people here, but there's something magical that happens to an artist when they get on stage. And Watching Ted and Doyle do their thing the other night, it's like, you realize how truly special they are and talented. Um, but also, I'm inspired by that. Um, and then it's, of course, it's just icing on the cake to hear a song that I wrote that when I wrote it, I kind of thought, oh, I knew it wasn't for me for some reason. I knew that it wasn't something that was going to live on for me. And these guys picked it up and did something more than I ever would have or could have with it.
Awesome. And don't you think that that is worth more than any of the streaming and any of the like anything else? Like money's just money, right? That's just like you can't buy those other experiences. And I think that's what's fun about music.
Yes.
So for each of you, and as we'll kind of start to wrap up here, and I'll start with Ted and then ask you all the same question. If somebody's watching this and this is, they haven't released music before, what would be your kind of 30-second, 1 minute sort of elevator speech on how to guide them on what to do if they want to get their music out there?
I think just do what is comfortable for you. And I'm not kidding, if you literally want to grab your phone and record those things and then post it up somewhere, go do that. That's fine, because you can always take it down later, right? But if it's something you want to do, don't spend a lot of time worried about the obstacles. Get them out of the way. Just do it and regret it later, if you will, right?
Yeah.
I say that because my brain is something that will get in my way. So I got to just move faster than it, if that makes sense. That's, I think, the most important thing that I would say.
Well, and plus, phones record pretty darn well these days. So don't feel like you just recorded it on your phone, because they sound pretty good. Doyle, how about you? What would be your advice?
I think I would echo a little bit of what Ted said, because between your phone and YouTube and the social media platforms that are out there, you can publish your work, and writing, whether it's writing on a page with a pen or your songwriting, there's multiple ways to publish that, right? Whether it's just to put it on, a poem I write for my wife, I put it on the refrigerator, it's published, right? If you go into the studio, I have a really good friend who was my first producer and taught me so much about being in the studio. And you practice and practice and practice so that you save and use your time wisely in the studio. I would say that's something to definitely do. Have your stuff ready to roll. And then also keep the circle of people you involve in your project really, really tight. If you ask for outside help, go with the people who are wonderful human beings and just happen to be excellent musicians, because the vibe in the studio can be affected even by just one person. And so I would recommend that. But it's creative, right? And it's a joy, and there should be joy in it. And so that's what I would say is, if you have that itch to record something, definitely do it to whatever means you have available to you, because that's a joyful thing.
Awesome. And Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely echo what Ted and Doyle said. I'll take it back a step with the writing piece of it. Find things in your town that are happening. Songwriter nights have been a huge part of my growth. That's how the other night at Ted and Doyle's gig, one of the artists on the bill was a guy named Jim Walsh, and he's really connected in the Minneapolis music community. He used to run a songwriter night called the Mad Ripple Hootenanny. And half of the people that I know in the music community here are because of Jim, because I played his gig. And not only getting to play that gig and getting to know people, it's inspiration when you go out and see Ted and Doyle on a Saturday night, or you're at your local songwriter night discovering somebody you haven't heard before. You're investing in the creative energy, and you definitely get something back out of that.
Awesome. And I think, to kind of wrap this up too, Doyle, you said something about, you kind of learn from people that you're around. And I think if you are in a place where you haven't met people, maybe hire the local recording studio to teach you some things, right? Like, I mean, you're really paying for their time, and really go in as a student, no matter what you're doing. Like Matthew, you said, going to a writer's night, go in thinking like, what can I learn from this experience? Even if it's what songs work for the audience or what doesn't work, or, how are they talking to the audience or things like that. I think being a student takes some of the pressure off, right? Because you're just going in to try it, and if it works, cool, but if not, oh well, you can learn from it, you know?
Well said. Definitely well said. I want to just underscore what Matt said about seeing other people, because that definitely inspires you when you see what other people are doing. It totally inspires you and gets you ready to write and ready to step outside your comfort zone, because for me, at least, no learning happens unless I'm outside my comfort zone.
Awesome.
To that end, there's a thing in here called Open Mic Twin Cities, and I'm very sure that it's not just Open Mic Twin Cities here in Minnesota. It's Open Mic Boston, Open Mic. You can Google these things. So if you haven't performed and you want to, there are ways to find these things, and you just start to get plugged in. And you're going to do 1 or 2 songs. So if you're terrified, you're only up there for 10 minutes, and then you can get off and enjoy someone else. And, and eventually you'll get that adrenaline, that terror turns into, I want to do this again, so I encourage you to do it.
Or even if you're too scared to get up there the first time, the fact that you made the effort to go, you're probably going to meet somebody, you'll be able to watch, and then next time, you'll build up the courage to do it. But yeah, open mics are a great way to get out there for sure.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you all so much for being on At Home Songwriting. This has been awesome to talk through, and obviously we just like scratched the surface on some of these things. So people watching, definitely look online. There's a lot of good YouTube channels of people that are, giving advice on releasing music and stuff, but you have to find out what works for you. And all of these guys have music out there too, so I'm going to put the links in the description so people can check that out. But thank you all for joining tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Wow, what a great, fun conversation about releasing music and getting music out there, and just the struggles of being an independent musician and an independent songwriter. I hope this is helpful. I hope learning from others was really good for you. If you want to keep learning with At Home Songwriting, be sure to go to athomesongwritingcourses.com, join our online community. We also have monthly free workshops on our meetup group. All the links are in the description. We've got some things that cost money, but a lot of what I do is free for you guys, so check it out. And hopefully you'll hit subscribe and keep watching this channel, and let me know if there's anything you want to learn about on At Home Songwriting as well. So thanks for your time today, and head to the next video.